All right, welcome to the lecture. This is ITE, that is Information Technology Essentials, IT Essentials. We are giving lecture now on chapter 10, and that is about operating system. Chapter 10 of the course is about operating system. So welcome to the channel. If you are new on this channel, please subscribe to the channel and then like and share the video. The channel handle is still at electro_teach, youtube.com/@electro_teach. Subscribe the channel, like and share the video. Now, let's move on to the lecture straight. We want to learn about the operating system. Operating system, that is the software aspects of a computer system. That is what we are learning today. All right. Now, talking about a operating system, we want to look at the requirements for installing operating system on a computer. We want to look at the requirements when you want to install an operating system. We want to also look at the various types of operating system that we have. Then we are going to look critically about a Windows operating system. And we're going to look at Windows 7, Windows 8.1, Windows 10. Basically, Windows operating system is what we are focusing on. Now, these are the things I want to learn as objectives in this chapter. Talk about modern operating systems, requirements for OS installation, functions of operating system, operating system software and hardware requirements, process and upgrading of an operating system. The disk management, talking about partition of Windows partitioning and disk management utility. And then having said that, we want to move on to also how to install the operating system, how to install Windows operating system. Now, we are starting off about from a operating system terms, the terms, that we use in a operating system. First of all, we talk about the following terms, but 4 important terms here. One is multi-user. When you say operating system is multi-user, it means the operating system is capable of giving various a number of people their separate accounts. And so having individual accounts allow them to work with programs and peripheral devices at the same time. And so it means if I, my wife, my son, we want to use this system, each person can create an account, and each account does not affect the other. So when they want to use the system, they log into their accounts. When I want to use mine, I log into my own accounts. So we can create like 3 or more accounts. So more than one account is possible, and that means the operating system is multi-user. Then multitasking. Multitasking means the computer is capable of operating multiple applications at the same time. For instance, I'm actually using a PowerPoint right now. I'm also using an app to record this video. Apart from that, I open several files on the system. If the operating system is not capable of multitasking, all this will not be possible. Well, because it's capable of multitasking, several apps can be opened, several programs can run at the same time. So that is multitasking. Apart from that, we have multiprocessing. Multiprocessing means the operating system can support 2 or more CPUs. From the time of Corduo, when Corduo was released, that is operating system that has a processor that has 2 operating systems. So since that time, operating system has been also developed to the extent of multiprocessing that can support 2 or more CPUs. So that is it. So multiprocessing means the operating system can support more than one CPU. Multithreading. A program can be broken into smaller pieces, and then several channels in the operating system can now take them one by one and operate, execute the program. So when the program is broken into smaller parts, they are loaded as needed by the operating system. And then multi-threading allows different parts of a program to be run at the same time. And that makes the operation of the computer to be faster. So when a CPU is capable of hyper-threading, the multi-threading will be needed also from the operating system to actually feed the CPU programs to execute. When you turn on a system, the OS boots the computer and then it manages the file system. This is function of the operating system. Operating system can support more than one user, one task or CPU, and that is what we have explained on the screen here. Multi-user, multitasking, multiprocessing, multi-threading. We move on now to basic functions of operating system. The basic functions of operating system includes managing interaction between applications and the hardware. When you open an app, the app you open as a user is going to do something on the system, and then it processes it and brings answer or results back to you. Now, the app you open will communicate with the hardware, but it cannot communicate with the hardware directly. It is operating system that is standing in between the app and the hardware. And bear in mind that it is the hardware, the electronic modules, that actually performs the operation that you want to do. But you cannot interact with them directly yourself, but you interact with the app. The app is sitting on the operating system. Now, the operating system collects every information there and take it to the hardware that does the processing. And after the processing has been done, the result is collected by the operating system and given to the app, and that is to be displayed by you to you. It is to be displayed by the app to you, the user. And that is how the computer functions. The operating system is managing interaction between the user, interaction between user using the application program and then to the hardware. Secondly, the operating system creates file structure on the hard drive to store data. It is OS that manages how the file structure, how files are being kept on the hard drive. Also, OS enables the user to interact with the software and hardware. I've explained that also. The way you interact with apps, it is OS that manages this interaction between you and the hardware. The hardware does all the job on the computer, but users don't directly interact with those hardware, the electronic modules in the computer, including the CPU and several other parts of the computer. Also, the OS locates an application and loads it into the RAM of the computer. When you want to use an application and you are trying to open it, the OS is the one that will look for it and then open it up and place it in the RAM for the user so that the user can use it. If you look at the screen here, this is a graphic demonstration of different functions of the operating system. One is hardware access. Hardware access, that's the first one here. The second one, file management. How files are arranged or kept on the hard drive. The user interface. The user interface that you see on the screen when you open the system, that is what the operating system presents. It is the operating system that takes care of that. Then application management. Management of the application program that are installed is done by the operating system. Now we want to look at Windows operating system. We have Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. Those are the one that we can say are the common operating system right now for Windows operating system. Before Windows 7, we've had operating system in those days, Windows NT, Windows 2000, blah, 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 Windows XP, Windows Vista. Windows XP and Windows Vista, they were the last before Windows 7 came about. Windows 7 was a development or an upgrade from Windows XP or Windows Vista. But right now, most systems don't have Windows XP or Windows Vista any longer. And in fact, even Windows 7 is almost being phased out now. But some systems still do use Windows 7. Now, Windows 8 came after Windows 7, which was introduced as after Windows 7 as an upgrade over Windows 7. And this operating system introduced Metro user interface that unifies the window look and feel on desktops, laptops, mobile phones, and tablets. Then we have Windows 8.1. Windows 8.1 is an update to Windows 8, which brought us certain improvements to make Windows 8 familiar for users with devices that use touch of mouse and keyboard interfaces. That was Windows 8.1. It is still Windows 8, but a step ahead. That is a little bit modification that make the system look familiar for people that use mouse and pointing devices. Windows 10. Windows 10 is an update from previous versions of Windows, which is a update from Windows 7 or update from Windows 8. So you can go from Windows 7 or Windows 8, 8.1 and upgrade it to Windows 10. It was designed for PCs, tablets, embedded devices, and even Internet of Things devices. So it's not only to be used on computers, you can use it on several other devices, tablets, embedded system, Internet of Things devices, and so on. Now, when you want to install operating system, you need to look at customer requirements. Customer requirements include what the system will need, and also what program will be used on the system, what the customer wants to use the system for, what hardware does what hardware type is present on the system, the customer system, before we can begin to install OS on it. So you must, before you can make a recommendation to a customer what operating system should be installed, you must actually review certain things such as budget. How much does the person have? Is the person able to install a clean installation or maybe make an upgrade? All right. You must learn how the computer is going to be used, which type of application will be installed, whether a new computer will actually be preferable, depending on the usage, program, and so on and so forth. Now, some of the things you need to find out more about are these. Question: does the customer use off-the-shelf applications for this computer? That is, application program that will be obtained, bought outside somewhere. Is that what the person wants to use the system for? You need to find out about that. Apart from that, you must, when you find out that, you will now be able to look at what type of operating system should be installed because of the program that the person is going to be using. We have Windows, we have Ubuntu. If you look at the screen here, we have OS X. These are various operating systems available in the market. So Ubuntu, for instance, Ubuntu is a Linux operating system. Linux, if you have heard of Linux, that is Ubuntu is a version of Linux. Windows, Ubuntu, OS X, these are various operating systems available. So one will need to choose out of this. But before you can choose, you know this requirement we are discussing. And that question is this: does the customer use customized applications that were programmed specifically for the customer? That is to say, is there a specialized program that the customer is going to use that is meant for his own particular company or job? So that question is also critical. It helps you to determine which operating system will be preferable in that case. Now, if the customer is using a customized application, the programmer of that application will specify which operating system to be used. And so that gives you an idea what operating system should be installed. So those are some of the requirements to know compatible operating system to be installed on a computer. Next, we look at hardware requirements and compatibility. We want to talk about Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10. Then certain components will be considered. These are processor, RAM, hard drive space, graphics card, display, internet connection. When you want to install any of these operating system, what are the requirements? The hardware requirements, that is, what space, RAM, and so on should come with the system before we can put the operating system in, before you can install the operating system. So these are the requirements we are talking about. First, we are going to talk about the processor. Now, the processor, for Windows 10, you need minimum of 1 gigahertz processor. That is, the speed must be at least 1 gigahertz or faster than that. Then, same thing goes for Windows 8.1 and Windows 7. We need 1 gigahertz minimum for processor, 1 gigahertz speed. Then for RAM, we need at least, for Windows 10, 1 gigahertz for 32-bit operation system, or 2 gigabytes for 64-bit operating system. That's for Windows 10. Windows 8.1, same thing. Windows 7, same thing. Hard drive space, the space needed on the hard drive to install the OS. Windows 10, 60 gigabyte for 32 bits or 20 gigabyte for 64-bit operating system. Same for Windows 8.1 and Windows 7. Graphic cards, they also require the same graphic cards. DirectX 9 or later with WDDM 1.0 driver. These are the requirements, the same requirements for the 3 operating systems. For display, Windows 10 requires 800 by 600 pixel. Windows 8.1 requires 1024 by 768. For Windows 7, it is not specified. Then internet connection. Internet connection is necessary for the installation, because after the installation, you will need internet connection to update drivers, so service packs, and so on, and so on. So internet connection will be required at the end of the installation process. Now we look at 32-bit and then 64-bit processor architecture. When we talk about 32-bit, 64-bit architecture, we are talking about the bit size, the processor, the rate at which a processor transmits data in terms of bits. So when they started developing processors in those days, it was around 4 bits, 8 bits, and those were old systems. Now, currently we have 32-bit and 64-bit computer system, meaning that they are transmitting data at a higher rate, 32-bit or 64 bits. For 32-bit architecture, is called x86-32, and they process multiple instructions using a 32-bit address space. They support 32-bit operating system and then supports maximum of 4 gig RAM. So when you are using 32-bit system, the maximum RAM that can be installed is 4 gig. For 64-bit operating system called x86-64, they had additional registers specifically for instruction, and that uses 64-bit address space. And then the 64-bit operating system is a processor, rather, is backward compatible with 32-bit processor. It means it can actually execute programs from 32-bit processor. Then it supports both 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems. That is meaning that it's also backward compatible with 32-bit OS. So it can process information from 32-bit and 64-bit, whereas 32-bit cannot process data from 64-bit operating system. That is a distinction between 32-bit and 64-bit processor architecture. And this is to be taken into consideration also when you are going to install new operating system. You must determine the software or apps, application program that will be installed, if they are going to be 32-bit or 64 bits. So we must take this into consideration to know the OS required on a particular computer by a customer. Now, to check operating system compatibility, when you want to install operating system, you can do that. OS must be upgraded periodically. That is when you have a old operating system and you need to update. That may be necessary because you want your system to be compatible with latest hardware and software. So you need to upgrade. Before you upgrade, you need to check whether your system is actually compatible with the OS that you want to install. Now, before upgrading the system, you must check the minimum hardware requirements that were mentioned earlier for the new OS to ensure that it can be installed successfully on the computer without any hitch. All right. To check that, Microsoft provides the Get Windows 10 application that can be automatically downloaded and installed via the Windows Update service on a computer, whether you are running Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. So with Windows 7 Service Pack 1 and Windows 8.1, you can run this program, and then the program will load up like what we have on the screen here. Then it will tell you whether Windows 10 will be able to work on your system. Look at the screen, it says Windows 10 will work on this PC. So when you have this, you can go ahead and begin to upgrade your Windows 7 or Windows 8.1 to Windows 10 at this point. Although there are still other requirements, other steps need to be taken before you do the upgrade. So we see some of those things needed as we go on in the lecture. Now, talking more about the Windows OS upgrades. The OS available determines available upgrade options. For example, 32-bit operating system cannot be upgraded to a 64-bit operating system. We have said that one earlier. cannot be upgraded. Windows 7 and Windows 8 can be upgraded to Windows 10, but Windows Vista and Windows XP cannot. We cannot upgrade them. When your system is running Windows Vista or Windows XP, what you do is to do a total formatting and install a fresh operating system. That is fresh Windows 10 operating system. Now, to upgrade Windows 7 or Windows 8 to Windows 10, you use Windows 10 Update Assistance. Windows 10 Update Assistant. That's available that you can download from Windows 10 websites and install on your computer. Then it takes you through all the steps needed to upgrade your Windows to Windows 10 with all the setup and the processes. By the time you install it, then you'll be able to upgrade your operating system to Windows 10. Now look at the screen here. You see download Windows 10. That is the interface from the download Windows 10 update app. Windows 10 update app that you install that will help you to upgrade your operating system to Windows 10. Now, for computers running Windows XP or Windows Vista, there's no upgrade for them. Like we said, you need to install a fresh operating system. Fresh installation, a clean installation. That's what is going to happen. So to do that, you can create Windows 10 installation media tool. And Windows 10 installation media can be created using the Create Windows 10 installation media tool. So that is that for Windows 10 upgrades. It's only Windows 7 and Windows 8 that can be upgraded to Windows 10. XP, Windows XP, Windows Vista, fresh installation is required. But even with that, you must consider the hardware requirements for that system, for that operating system, to actually know that your host computer that's running Windows XP or Windows Vista will be able to install Windows 10. Otherwise, you may need to actually get a new computer. If the hardware requirement is not met, you may need to get a new computer if you want to use Windows 10. Another point is that Windows XP, Windows Vista, even Windows 7, Microsoft has stopped supporting those OS. So it means the best bet is to go higher, the OS list, go higher to Windows 8, Windows 10. Now, data migration. Before you actually install before you update or upgrade your operating system from Windows 7 to Windows 10 on a particular existing computer, you need to migrate the data. And that is very important. Either you back up all the data out or you use upgrade assistance. Use upgrade assistance. So user data, the files that have been installed, important files, documents, pictures, videos, and so on and so forth. You need to back them up. Now, user state migration to USMT. It's a command utility that you can use to simplify user state migration. If you also want to, you can use Windows Easy Transfer. That is when you are, upgrading from old computer to a new one. Then we also have PC Mover Express. That's another tool that can be used for transferring selected files, folders, profiles, and application from old computer to a new Windows 10 computer. All right, PC Mover Express, Windows Easy Transfer, and the user state migration tool. These are the tools you can use to back up data, to migrate data from old system to a new one. So that is what we can use. So we can see the graphic here, the displays the 4 types of tools that can be used to move your data from old system to a new one. And so that is about that. So we come to a stop for this lecture now. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so that you can get notified each time we bring a new lecture. We want to continue the lecture on the Windows installation. Okay. Now, when you want to install a new Windows operating system, you need to check for compatibility, as we said earlier. For instance, the computer that you're going to use to install the OS, you must check whether it's compatible with either 32-bit OS or 64-bit OS, for instance. And also, we have the minimum requirements for the hardware before operating system can be installed. So the new OS, you must ensure that it can be installed on your system. Now, Microsoft provides the Get Windows 10 application that can be automatically downloaded and installed via Windows Update Service on computers running either Windows 7 Service Pack 1 or Windows 8.1. So we can use this one to install our operating system Windows 10 on Windows 7 or Windows 8.1. Now, apart from that, we want to also talk about data migration. Data migration. When you are upgrading from older operating system to a new operating system, then you will carry out data migration. Data migration, because it is necessary to keep the data safe on the computer system. The files that have existed on the computer must be kept safe. And that means you need to find a way of keeping the data somewhere. And that is what we mean by data migration. Now, when it comes to the Windows computer system, there is a number of ways in which you can do this data migration. You can actually use a user state migration tool, USMT. It's actually a command line utility that can be used to do migration of the old files when the new operating system is installed. There's another one called the Windows Easy Transfer that you can use when you are switching from old computer to a new one. Another one is the PC Mover Express tool that is used to transfer selected files, folders, profiles, and application from an old Windows PC to a Windows 10 PC. Now, when you are carrying out a new fresh installation, you have to do external backup of files in the computer system, because you will not be able to keep them on the hard drive. So these are various ways by which we can do a data migration. So if you check the screen here, you see data migration, you see user state migration to Windows Easy Transfer, and then PC Mover Express. These are the ways by which we can do the data migration. All right. Now, we want to talk about Windows installation, how to carry out the installation of OS on the computer system. All right. Now, the Windows storage devices needed. We want to first of all talk about the devices needed, which are the hardware devices needed to install the operating system. We can actually use the hard drive to install the operating system. Okay. Okay. We can use the various devices, such as the hard drive of the computer system to do the installation. Another one is the USB drive. You can use a USB drive to do the installation. You can also use either solid state drive to do the installation. If your system has a solid state drive, that means perhaps the system is not a desktop, but probably a laptop. It will use to have a SSD drive, solid state drive, or whatever drive is there. You can use these ones for the installation. Now, when the storage device has been chosen, then it's needed to be prepared in order to receive the OS that is going to be installed. Now, modern operating systems have an installer program that actually prepare the disk to receive the operating system we are going to install. But it is important that the technician, the person installing, need to understand the terms and methods for this preparation. Now, we want to talk about disk management. Under this management, we talk about the partitioning of the hard drive on which we are going to install the OS. To launch the operating system, the computer system actually is controlled by a firmware. That is the BIOS firmware that needs to know the partition scheme. It needs to look at the partition scheme used in the system. And there are two major partition schemes, which are MBR, that is master boot record, and the GPT, that is a guild partition table. These are the two methods by which an operating system is set up on the computer. All right. So the master boot record contains information on how the hard drive partitions are organized, and this information is stored in the BIOS. And then when the computer is starting up, the operating system will look for this MBR to know which one is the bootable disk, and then it looks for the disk that should be loaded, that should be reached first to actually find the operating system and load it up. The MBR is 512 bytes long and contains a bootloader, which is actually an executable program that allows the user to choose from multiple operating systems. The systems using BIOS firmware, they are the one that usually use the MBR partitioning system. Then the other one, the git partitioning system, is a partition scheme that has a partition table for hard drive. And here, the GPT uses a number of modern techniques to expand on the functions of the older MBR partitioning scheme. And then the GPT is usually used with a system that are having UEFI, that is Universal Extensible Firmware Interface. UEFI does everything that BIOS can do, but also can do more than that. So any system using UEFI as a firmware, we use GPT as a partitioning system. Now on the screen here, we have the comparison between the two, MBR and GPT. For MBR, we have maximum of 4 primary partitions. For GPT, we have up to 128 partitions in Windows. MBR can use a maximum partition size of 2 terabytes. For GPT, on the other hand, we have 9.4 zettabytes. That is 9.4 times 10 raised to the power 21 bytes. That's quite huge. And we see that it has an advantage in terms of size over the MBR. For MBR, there's no partition table backup, but for GPT, there's a partition table backup that is designed with the system. Then MBR, partition and boot data is stored in one place. For GPT, partition and boot data stored in multiple locations across the disk. These are the differences between the two systems of partitioning. Any computer that can boot, any computer can boot from MBR, but for GPT, only system using UEFI that are running 64-bit operating system can actually use GPT. They can boot from GPT. That is about partitioning. So still on partitioning, we talk about partitions and logical drives. We have what we call primary partition. The primary partition, that is where the operating system is stored. The operating system files are stored in the primary partition, and that is usually the first partition. Then we can talk about active partition, extended partition, logical drive. We have a basic disk, dynamic disk, and then formatting. On the MBR disks, the active partition is used to store and boot an operating system. But if there are more than 4 partitions needed on an MBR disk, then one of those partitions can be designated as the extended partition. And then a logical drive partition is an extended partition that is used to separate information for administrative purposes. Also, a basic disk, which is the default, contains partitions such as primary and extended. That is basic disk. So primary partition, extended partition are residing in the basic disk. Also, logical drives, which are formatted for data storage. Now, a dynamic partition can also create volumes that span across more than one disk. That is about a dynamic partition. A formatting partition creates a file system on a partition for file storage. These are the things, the various portions of the partitions and logical drives and what they are used for. And the file systems, the way in which the files are created and stored is the file system. We have about 5 different types of file system. First one here is the file allocation table, 32 bits, which is called FAT32. So this file system are distinguished in terms of their properties of speed, flexibility, security, size, and much more. So for instance, the FAT32 supports partition sizes up to 2 terabytes. That is 2.048 gigabytes. And this is used by older systems that are running operating systems such as Windows XP and earlier operating system versions. They use FAT32. Then after FAT32, there is also NTFS. That is New Technology File System. This system supports partition sizes up to 16 exabytes. So NTFS is higher in capacity and incorporates file system security. File system security features and extended attributes. Then the next one is XFAT. That is a FAT34. It is created to address some of the limitations of FAT32 and NTFS when you need to do formatting of USB flash drives, such as file size and directory size. And one of the primary advantages of the FAT64 is that it can support files that are larger than 4 GB in size. We also have the CDFS, that is compact sticks file system. This is created specifically to do formatting system for optical discs, such as CD, DVD, or the Blu-ray discs. That is the CDFS file system. Then the NFS, network file system. Network file system is a network-based file system that allows the file access over the network, and it's an open standard, and then that means it allows anyone to implement it. That is the network file system, NFS. So basically, the XFAT, apart from the NTFS, the XFAT is the one that is in vogue now for computer system that are being used in the file system for operating systems. The CDFS is mainly for optical drives, and NFS is for network file system. Now we move on to the installation and booting sequence of the operating system. Installation and booting sequence. Now, the first thing we want to talk about is account creation. When the operating system has been installed, then accounts can be created, and then there are two main account systems that can be created in Windows 10, for instance. We have the administrator accounts and the standard user accounts. Now, when a user is going to use authentication to log into the system, it means it's going to log in with a username and password. And the Windows operating system uses single sign-on authentication. That means once somebody logs into his account, all the file system resources in the computer system will be accessible. So the person now has access to all file system. And user accounts allow multiple users to share a single computer using their own files and settings. That means, for instance, the computer I'm using here, 2, 3 or more people can use it by creating different accounts on the operating system. So my own account will be separate. Maybe my wife needs to use it, create another account on it. And so she will not be able to reach my files when she's using this system. So that is how it is. So user account creation will make that possible for many users to actually use the same computer system. Now, the administrator of the account created as administrator is the one that has complete control over the computer system. So that person can install software, install program, use the entire functions of the computer system. For standard user accounts, they have limited control, and then they can only use system-run applications. They cannot install programs. To install program, they will need permission from the administrator accounts in order to install any application on the system. Now, when you install a new operating system, to finalize it, you need to carry out a few things. You need internet to finish it up, because whatever operating system is installed at any particular time will be old. It will not be up to date, especially when it comes to the Surface Pack that have been released, patches that have been released into the operating system. So after the fresh installation, the system will be connected to the internet to actually download and update service packs and patches to make the Windows operating system up to date. Now, to do this also, we can go to the Windows update on the computer. If you don't know how to navigate, you can just type into the search box after booting up the system and type Windows updates. Then the Windows update will come up, and then you click it, or go to settings of the computer and search for Windows updates. Apart from that, after installing the OS, we need to also verify that all the hardware, they have proper driver so that they can run properly. And this can be done by checking from the device manager. You can open the system and open the device manager, where we can check all the hardware one by one. Any hardware that is listed that is not having a driver will be marked a yellow mark, and that yellow mark indicates that we need to install driver for that hardware. So to get to the device manager, we can search also from the search box. When the computer is booted up, you can type device manager and get there. Or go to my computer, right click and go to device manager to get to the device manager and check all the devices that are installed. The one that doesn't have any, that doesn't have a proper driver will be indicated by a yellow mark. All right. Next is disk cloning. We want to talk about various ways by which we can install the OS. One is called disk cloning. This is one important method in a custom OS installation. When we have a large number of systems to be installed, installing one by one will take a long time. If you carry the software, take it to each system one by one to install. So one shortcut is created that is called disk cloning. And that means the administrator of the computer will install the operating system on one particular computer and ensure that everything is installed properly. Then after the OS is installed, that computer is referred to as the base computer. Then a special program is used to duplicate all the information on the, on the disk of that base computer, sector by sector, to another disk. And that system is copied by a special, program. And this is saved onto a particular drive, like a external drive, like a DVD drive or a flash drive. That's what is copied is called an image of the initial installation on the base computer. So that image can be taken to various other computers and install them in a very short time. It will not take up to the same time it takes on the base computer to install. And that particular image can actually be, copied or duplicated into several, disks, such as CDs or DVDs, and then you can now take these DVDs to various computers. For instance, we have a large hall where we have like 100 computers, 200 computers. To install the operating system one by one, it takes time. If you want to install all the OS using the fresh installation on each one. So to make it faster, we can use a cloning. Now, during the copying of the OS from the base computer, if an undesirable setting is accidentally encountered, the administrator can use a Microsoft system preparation, which is called sysrep tool, to remove it before creating the final image. Otherwise, there will be an error in the image created, and it will not allow the operating system to be installed on the other systems properly. So if you check the screen here, we have the system preparation tool, and this is what can be used, the sysrep, to actually remove any error from the initial installation of the base system. So this is one method by which operating system can be installed. The Windows operating system can be installed on several computers. Other methods are the one we have here now. We have several other methods that are custom installation methods. And then one of them is the network installation. For network installation, the system is the operating system is installed from the computer network, from a computer network. And that includes a pre-boot execution environment, PXE installation, pre-boot execution environment, PXE installation, unattended installation, and remote installation. These are three various ways by which a operating system can be installed from a network. Then the image-based internal partition installation. Now, Windows system usually have an image, which is a copy of the installation of the operating system saved in a particular special partition on the hard drive. But this partition is usually hidden, and so the user cannot actually see it nor access it. But that image can be used when the operating system on that computer is having problem, can be used to restore the original state the computer has when it was shipped, when it was installed from factory. So that is an image-based internal partition installation. It is a partition created to save the image of the original installation of the OS in a computer. It is hidden from users and the user cannot see, but in the future, it may be needed to actually restore the operating system for the computer. Another type of custom installation is Windows Advanced Startup option. Windows Advanced Startup option. Now, when you refresh your, another one is called refresh your PC in Windows 8.1 and the rest. The other one is system restore. Another one is upgrade. Another one is called repair installation, then remote network installation, recovery partition, and refresh and restore. These are various ways by which computer system can be, operating system can be installed. Many of them are not real installations. They are not fresh installation, but to restore from an initial installation that has been saved. And then some of them are used when a computer operating system is having problem or it crashes. We can do a restore, either by repairing it or by doing a restore, a system restore, or by upgrading. These are various ways by which OS can actually be restored to initial installation of the OS. The other one is the remote network installation. We're going to also talk more about various ones. Remote network installation when operating system is installed from a server. When it is stored on the server, and then the client system is now used to communicate with the server and install it. Let's look at them. A remote network installation first. With this system, we have the operating system stored on a server, and the computer that it needs the operating system to be installed is now used to communicate with the server remotely. There is a special software package that is called Remote Installation Service, RIS, that is communicating with the client computer. Then it is that software that sources the setup files and provide all the necessary instructions for the client to access the setup files and download them and install the operating system on the computer. Now, because the client computer does not have the OS installed, then there's a special way by which the computer can be connected to the network and communicate with the server to begin the installation process. You cannot communicate with the server since there is no OS installed. There is no internet facility that will help it or the networking facilities that should be used from the OS. But a special way can be used to communicate with the server in that state. And that special environment is known as the pre-boot execution environment. Pre-boot execution environment, that is PXE. We can look at the screen here. We see how command prompt is being used to actually achieve that. You see the black screen here. This can be used to navigate to that environment, and then the pre-boot system is brought up onto the computer and can now communicate with the server even without a operating system installed. The next one is the unattended installation. Unattended network installation. The unattended network installation is a system by which Windows operating system can be installed on the computer why the user is not there and the computer sets itself up, all the various parts of the operating system will be installed without anybody, guiding the operating system. When you want to install operating system on a system, for instance, from point to point, the computer asks for certain things to be done, like creating a user account, do partitioning, formatting, and the rest. These are various things that a user needs to actually, do as an input to the installation to make it run smoothly to the end. Now, all this can be done unattended. In that situation, what happens is that a special file is created, which is called system image manager, that creates a setup answer file. The system image manager is the system used in Windows 10 to install operating system unattended. And then that is used to create setup answer file. The answer file is created in a special way to direct the computer to answers that it needs to run the operation. When it's going to partition, when it's going to create an account, all the necessary things will be typed into a file and saved for the computer to read it, copy it, and use it without anybody's input. So after that file is created, then two things can be done. The file called unattended.bat will be run. That is one way, will be run on the client machine to prepare the hard drive and install the operating system from the server over the network. So the operating system will be installed, and every point when an input is needed, that input will be copied from the answer file that is put on the computer. The other one is to create a boot disk, a boot disk that boots the computer and connects to the distribution shared folder on the server. Then, when that is used, the user then runs a batch file containing a set of instructions to install the operating system over the network. So these are the two ways. You check the screen here, we see unattended file that was stored, where it was stored on the computer system. So this is unattended installation. The computer will just be communicating with the network, copying files that needed to be installed to install operating system, and then requesting for answers what needs to be done at a point, and then go and check the answers file and see what the user has actually saved onto that file to know what's to be done at each point, and carry everything out from beginning to the end, and the operating system will be installed. So this system too can be used to install multiple operating system on multiple computers by preparing all the answers file for them in the server that they will use to complete the installation unattended. The next one is recovery partition. We made mention that a recovery partition is created on some Windows operating system, and the recovery partition is hidden to the user. The user cannot actually see it, but that partition is needed when the computer operating system is having a problem, and then it needs to be recovered or reinstalled. So recovery partition is used. Now, to restore the computer using recovery partition, the user will need to press special key or on the operating system when the computer is booting up. A special key will be pressed. Sometimes the restore from the factory recovery partition is saved onto the BIOS, and some other cases is saved in Windows. It can be found in Windows. When you check the screen here, you see the BIOS page where we can see the recovery partition. Recovery partition is there in the screen here. Upgrade method. In place upgrade, this one will update the operating system and then migrate apps and settings to the new operating system. The System Center Configuration Manager use a task sequence that can be used to completely automate the process. And then, like we said, operating system Windows 10 can be upgraded from Windows 7 or Windows 8. And then the Windows installation program will perform an in-place upgrade, meaning that it's going to install the new operating system on the old operating system. And all the files, drivers, every other thing needed, personal data will be copied and then put on the new operating system after the installation. Then the other one is a clean installation. Clean installation means the data on the computer has to be saved somewhere externally, because the operating system will not be able to keep it safe and load it after the installation. So that's a clean installation. So for that case, we need external drive to back up the files needed to be saved. So we have on the screen here, Windows 10 Enterprise upgrade task sequence editor. So this one is when you are upgrading from Windows 7 or Windows 8. Next is Windows boot sequence. Windows boot sequence is what the computer look for when it's booting up. And this is information saved in the BIOS firmware. And then the computer reads the configuration setting that is stored in the CMOS memory and follow that order in order to boot up. That is how the computer knows which disk has the operating system stored and copied it and begin to load it. The MBR identifies the volume boot record, and then it loads the boot manager, which is boot mgr.exe for Windows operating system. Hard drives, network drives, USB drives, and removable media such as flash drives can be used, for this boot order, depending on the capabilities of the motherboard. We have the BIOS interface on the screen, and then we see first boot drive, second boot device. These are the boot sequence that the computer is looking for. To install the operating system, the boot sequence has to be changed for external disk that contains the OS, such as DVD or flash drive, so that one is made as first boot device, and then the computer looks for that device and then copy the operating system and begin to install it onto the computer. Windows 7 startup modes. We have several startup modes for Windows 7, and we can access this when the computer begins to boot up by pressing F8 button. We can have save mode with networking, save mode with command prompts, and last known boot configuration. These are various startup modes on Windows 7, 4 different startup modes. Save mode is a diagnosis system whereby you can troubleshoot Windows operating system when it's having an error. So, and then the functionality at the operating system is limited because many drivers are not loaded at this point. Then save mode with networking, you can start the computer in save mode. Then networking support is present. You can now be communicating with the network and use the networking. In the save mode with command prompts, that is what we have on the screen. We have you can choose save mode with command prompt as a third option, whereby command prompt will be used, to navigate rather than the GUI, the graphic user interface of the computer system. And last known configuration is another way by which you can restore the operating system when it's having problem. When it's having problem, then you remember the last good configuration, you can restore to that point. Let's say this system is having problem today, the operating system is having problem today, and we know it's used yesterday, it's used last week, and everything was fine. So we could restore to previous dates, like yesterday or last week, and then the operating system will come back to life to good states. And every other thing that happened between now and then will be wiped on the computer system. So these are the various startup modes for Windows 7. F8 key, we make these options to be available. But for Windows 10 and Windows 8, they are faster in booting. So all these pressing F8 key will not make all the functionalities available. So instead of pressing F8 keys, so Windows 8 and Windows 10 can be, the startup modes can be accessible by pressing some special keys. This procedure can be followed. First, the shift key is held down. Then the restart option is clicked on the power menu. And then at that point, the choose an option screen comes up. Then to get to the startup setting, one needs to select troubleshoot. And from the next screen, the user will select advanced options. Then inside the advanced options, the user will select startup settings. Then on the screen, we have the blue screen that we have here, 1, 2, 3, up to 9 different startup settings. And then you can press any key from F1 to F9 to represent any of the one that you want to choose from, 1, 2, 3, up to 9. Then F10 will show more options, and then enter to return to the operating system. These are the various steps involved in going to startup menu of the Windows 10 and Windows 8. So that is a installation of Windows system that we've come to learn. We have learned a lot in this chapter. We've explained operating system requirements. We've discussed how to create a partition in Windows using disk management utility. And then we have also installed how to install a Windows operating system, the steps involved, the partitioning, so on and so forth. We have also come across new terms. We've come across so many new terms in the course of a discussion. These are some of the new terms: CDFS, cloning, data migration, dynamic disk, XFAT, FAT32, ISO-FI, multi-user, multitasking, multiprocessing, multi-threading, NFS, NTFS, partitioning, save mode, SSO, UAC, 32-bit processor architecture, 64-bit processor architecture. So you need to familiarize yourself with all these various terms that we have come across in the course of this chapter 10 lecture. So please go through the chapter module and watch the video to learn, and then prepare yourself for the chapter exam. So see you in the next lecture. Bye for now.